Welcome to ProBuild 360 TV. Welcome to the Onsite Podcast. Hugh Franklin, please introduce yourself.
I'm Hugh, head of AeroBarrierUK. We are an airtightness company specialising in measuring and verifying low energy builds across the UK, both commercial and domestic.
Let's talk a little bit about you, Hugh. I understand that in our research we found that you studied in Rome.
That's it,
and
yeah.
You say that's amongst other places. Tell us a bit about your history and how you got involved with AeroBarrier.
Yeah, so I left school, kind of stuck between two very different jobs, which was engineering and ancient history.
And you did your dissertation on something to do with town planning of Roman towns and cities?
Absolutely. So the whole premise of my dissertation there was to say, we talked about this as well, is technologies change. The way we heat homes, the way we design things has changed. But the logic behind why people make decisions and why they choose to live where they live is the same. It's the same now as it has always been. I'm a firm believer that humanity, or people, we are not more intelligent than we used to be. We know different things.
Yes.
If you took me to Neolithic, Neanderthal, Britain, and said, tell me what in that field I can eat and what will kill me, couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But if you ask a caveman to use an iPhone, they're going to be a bit stuck.
Yeah.
So we just know different things.
Different things.
And so, but essentially the logic behind why people did what they did is the same. So that's what I studied. That turned into heritage conservation work and looking at that, which took me into timber framing, eco-construction, and where we are now, really. So
because my question was going to be, people know that the Romans were the first to invent sort of basic underfloor heating system. I say basic; they're not particularly basic. They're very impressive.
Yeah.
You've mentioned things like the aqueduct and so on. So innovation is something that they are renowned for.
Hugely.
And I was wondering, do you think there was much influence from studying those things to how you've ended up in something so innovative in the industry of homes and building?
100%. Absolutely. Because I think if you go to any of these structures, you look at, and again, there's an accident of survival as well. Some of the things that weren't quite necessarily as well built have definitely fallen down. So we do have a little bit of an interesting look at that. But again, driving through Birmingham, exactly the same. You see these grand old structures knocking about and you go, time, pride, effort, and joy was put into these to pass on. And that is kind of the enduring thing that came from me, was how can we build things in a way that lasts for generations to come? And that really came through the sustainability thing, because, the way and the quality of what used to be built needs to be continued rather than diluted.
So you mentioned that the decision-making factors and the process of deciding where to live, how to live, and so on, have not changed greatly. And you've just mentioned high-quality living. What do you define as the important things to you if you were designing your own small town or your own home specifically? What are those factors?
So you see it in places like medieval towns, Poundbury, which is
Poundbury is they've got another self-build.
They do.
Yeah, that the now King Charles is very involved with.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, the premises of what's been built into that, which is walkability everywhere. You see it in central Italian cities especially as well. They're basically cordoned off the middles of towns and say you can drive at night to bring deliveries, but during the day we're going to put the bollards up and this is a walking town.
Okay.
So those sorts of elements. Also,
in the evening you say they have that. It's a walking town.
Oh no, during the day. So
it's during the day it's walking. In the evening the cars can come through.
Yeah, and do deliveries and sort of bits and like that.
Right.
And so for me, it's, for example, designing with the environment you're in. So this is a key tenet of Passive House, is orientation, daylighting.
Yes.
Not having single panes of glass pointing directly south because you get this Part O overheating and building regs is catching up.
Yeah.
Those sorts of elements. If you look at building design in the ancient world, the medieval world, and now, the houses that fit best with their environment are not not hermetically sealed units that you can put them anywhere. They are sympathetic, and they also fit with We see it when you're building on marshes and things like that, And again, a lot of new builds fall foul of this, which is, just building in areas where typically you wouldn't build. Why? Because it's damp.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I have a real gripe with the post-war architects like Le Corbusier and so on.
Yeah.
Anything to do now,
Thomas stuff.
I get in trouble for this conversation, which is why I save it to the podcast, because I'm allowed to say what I want here. But things like tower blocks, and I'm not knocking it because I understand that it's a necessary thing, for high density areas, with sort of migration patterns and so on. We've got growing populations in cities. People need somewhere to be, but I think that there is something to be cautioned about where you had, people, architects, and I don't just mean, high street architects. I mean the people that really changed the way architecture was done.
Yeah.
Like Le Corbusier, you're talking about people that almost had a disdain for people. And they literally, they put, as the late Sir Roger Scruton put it, they put function before form rather than balancing the two. So the idea was, look, if you can eat and you're sheltered, if you can keep people alive, that's good enough. If it's purely commercially driven, you lose the soul,
and also you lose the value. So I was on an MMC site very well this time last week, really, looking at it, and they were saying what we've actually got here is, and I've seen this on a number of sites now, especially in the last 6 to 8 months, where builders are going, we're not just building houses, and these are house builders, and they're saying, we're not just building houses, we're putting an old people's home in next to a school, because there's this amazing synergy between keeping old people in connection with the world.
I remember being in school, and we'd there were sort of residential homes, across the road, and we'd go, sing old World War II songs at Christmas, and we'd go and we'd give out tea and biscuits around there, just little volunteering things. And it was, it was a beautiful thing, and I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And exactly that. And I think the thing is they're doing mixed design, and that's where things like Poundbury and other modern developments come in. It's not a bunch of houses in one zone and then a bunch of commercial. The key is to make it so you've got little co-ops or bits and bobs dotting about that allow you to live and operate in one area and really create a sense of community. They're not putting houses up. Again, it's community building. That is the difference I see.
Anyone that's serious about sustainability should be championing localization
100%.
Rather than globalization, rather than sort of, as you say, like just sprawling developments of housing that are not balanced with sort of little commercial centres where people can start businesses and have local, even like local agriculture, local farmers, small farmsteads and stuff like that.
Well, if you live on the top of a 20-storey block of apartments and you have to travel an hour and a half to get to work, that is so unproductive because you are not able to be 10 minutes from work or have the flexibility to hybrid, anything like that. You're in your own little shell and the world slows down, doesn't speed up. If you look at any of the great spooling ups of industries, Japan in the 80s, everything like that, it's all based on little industries all pulling together and pointing a single way.
Our executive producer Faisal's from Singapore. One of the greatest examples of a modern city-state becoming something incredible over a period of 50 years.
Absolutely. And it's through careful planning and also a shared vision.
And that's exactly what I wanted to, get stuck into with you in terms of what we're calling modern methods of construction.
Yeah.
But my experience has been that, we've built houses in factories, completely finished houses, tiling, plumbing, heating, decorated, bathrooms, kitchens, staircases, the whole lot done in the factory. And shipped them out to site. It was a prototype that we did for a local authority housing group. Yeah. They had 50 sites allocated for social housing. They wanted to show a proof of concept for a completely off-site build for their new units. And we did it and we delivered it and it was fantastic. But there's a suspicion that some of it is shoehorning progressivism a little too quickly, a little bit of a vanity project here and there, a little bit of, ego coming into it. People just want to hang their hat on something and say, I did that.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is something like AeroBarrier ticks all the boxes. It's reducing waste. It's freeing up the workforce to become specialized and for the potential of human input to be allocated to where humans are best suited. Yeah. And it's just the perfect example of a modern method of construction. Now, because it's on airtightness, you sort of people want to talk about things that are structures. Oh, we built this structure in some kind of modern way, because that's the they get all the glory. It's the big thing that you can see. But I wonder how much of it is a little bit putting the horse before the cart.
I would have
before the horse.
I would I would agree with you, because I think it is. I think what the industry needs to understand is, where are the tangible wins now? What we're doing is we're going from first gear into fifth gear.
Yeah.
We need to find a way to get the movement. And equally, I think the thing also is that, as you say, the vanity projects, a term that could be used, is here is the one perfect design that will fit everywhere. This is the universal, and this is back to Le Corbusier. Like, this is the perfect example of how a human should operate.
Yeah.
That,
as a commodity, as a cog in a wheel, according to him.
And a machine, and you go, that's not the case. What you've forgotten there is the actual bit, the fact of what the end product is for, which is for people. So our aim, and again, I think the aim of innovation in the very first instance has to be understanding, where can we find the most value in terms of taking people's brain power and putting it to use.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people out there. You learn something new every day, genuinely, and you go, I had no idea that you could do that. Yeah. I had no idea that was an option for us.
It's a great time to be alive.
It's amazing. Again, everyone goes, you're so excited. It's like, yeah, this is exciting. Yeah, this is really exciting. And you get this idea of, we don't hand cut nails anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's an insane thing to do. Yes. Just one person smashing nails out. No, get a machine to do it, and then give the people, the blacksmiths and people who do those jobs, options to, build beautiful staircases, ironmongery, all the elements that we look at and go, that's amazing.
You don't have to get rid of the traditional methods or the traditional materials and stuff like that. No. Just take the human potential and allocate it to something bigger and better.
Absolutely. And equally, if that means that you're able to deliver more projects. So we find with AeroBarrier, for example, I'm trying to gently bring it back, around to the innovation bit as well. The shameless, I know. If we're able to take four times the air tightness budget out of projects. Yeah. In terms of just people running around like headless chickens trying to find stuff. We're able to speed up that process by between 3 and 5 times, generally. Now, if you put that over 1,000 home development, which we've done, in an international project, that was saving like 14 to 16 hours of labour.
Yeah.
Site manager stress, product.
Oh, God.
Yeah, product. For example, we've done one developer site. For a standard, you'd call it a standard, 120 to 96 square metre home. Traditional UK new build size. It took about 3 to 4 litres of sealant to do it, which is basically 1 can of paint.
Yeah.
And that took it from a
toxic paint.
Yeah. Toxic, unbreathable paint. They were able to use low VOC stuff, 0 off-gassing, permanently flexible. It's got certification for schools and hospitals. We are able to take that from basically scraping building regs and taking about 30% of the energy usage out of that building.
With less effort.
Less effort, faster. And that basically took us a morning, 3 to 4 hours of time.
Yeah.
And if you're able to spool that up, it's not just how much labour are you wasting, is how many more buildings could you build in that time? How much faster could you deliver projects?
Yeah.
So, for example, 80% of the UK building market is retrofit.
Is it really?
Yeah. If we're going to hit our net zero targets, 20% new build, 80% retro. That is the movement we have to take, which means that you are not going to be able to bolt stuff on to existing buildings from a factory. You can't build a factory box and throw it onto the side of a Georgian townhouse. It just will not work. Now, what will work is if we take those people who are doing the the labour intensive and let's thankless work of on-site stuff that can be basically automated or generally mechanized a bit better. And we can put those people and say, guys, here's your retrofit market. Here is the market where you can have pride and put your stamp on this building.
And that's a wonderful concept, because that would give such vitality to the domestic builder, which is a dying breed now, because there's been such a move towards new build and delivering on new build. I think that a lot of people that might be third generation, fourth generation builders, working class, salt of the earth people, the latest generation are either house bashing or in big apartment blocks, working for subcontractors, just running,
fitting the same bathroom again and again and again,
rather than, and again, we don't want to make it too much of a plug, but what we do, we come from, although we do new builds and we're developers, we come from domestic, and we have always said it's much harder, much more rewarding, much more of an art. It's a beautiful thing, and it gives, the guys that I grew up learning construction from, you can't
teach that.
You can't teach what they did. They could, the people always say, we could build you a house. It wasn't just that. It was the kind of people they were.
Yeah.
The British, and I don't want to speak for other countries, but the British domestic builder is a beast of his own. And the work ethic, the pride in it, and that sort of stuff. And that was handed down for many, many generations. And I think that now, it would be wonderful to get that back, and to have people that are committed to, individual home projects. Mrs. Jones is looking at her retirement. She wants the house to be beautiful for the next 20 years. You come in and you assess the home. That's why we do our consultation, because our consultation, whether you've got architect's drawings and you're you know what you want to build, fine, you know what size you want the house to be, how many bedrooms you want, whatever else, but we'll come as builders and inject some love into the project and say, have you really thought about this, and why don't you pay more attention to X, Y, or Z? Because that's going to give you the comfort, that's going to future proof the home, and so on.
And that's exactly where that experience of building comes in. Whereas you can have desktop surveys of things done, and you get this, they're all tarred with the same brush, really. And then what that means is you get something that's not fit for purpose, because that's a question that only really a builder will ask is this fit for what you want? And then you can say,
it should be what a builder asks.
Exactly.
But today, what we find so much is that builders just want to know, what do you want built? Give me the drawings and I'll cost it for you. They don't take that time. I think maybe 20 years ago there was plenty of that kind of builder, but we've lost that. That's why a company like ours appeals, because we do.
And also, I think maybe we've equally, I think what's happening is the mainstream market has lost it, because let's say you go for a hyper expensive bespoke build, and you on Pinterest, of course, where you can spend days looking at beautiful things that people have made. That bespoke, what do you want builder has moved to a market that essentially is unattainable for 90% of Britain. But for us to build and make sure we hit the retrofit that we need to become a sustainable country, we have to open that market back up to everyone. You cannot be exclusive. As you say, you guys do work with all flavours, because it's an understanding that everyone has value, everyone's home has value. And it's not just the give me what you want and I'll put it together. It's not IKEA factory, furniture. It has to have that personal flavour to it.
If you drive around any major city, you're going to be, in the UK, you're going to be looking at Victorian terraces 60 to 70% of the time. And if not, semis. Those aren't going anywhere.
No.
They're not going to be flattened and turned into car parks. So this retrofit and AeroBarrier is a great example of how we can bring those things right. It's so necessary.
It really is. And I think the thing is all sympathetic stuff as well. So it's, as you say, it's not saying just bolt an air source onto this or do this, do that. It's understanding, how can we make this home the best home it can possibly be? So that's a big part of it. Again, we were at the Building Innovation Awards last Thursday, and won most innovative SME.
Congratulations.
So that was a massive vindication of what we were trying to do. So that was amazing for what we've got now. And yeah, we're looking to just keep on cracking on with that, really.